Welcome to Fantasy Football Aces. I'm William Wolf. I'm back, and I got a special episode for you today. I've been really looking forward to this one, and it's about these big boy offensive linemen. And in the spirit of these big boy offensive linemen, I'm here. On the contrary, just the complete opposite. Not as big of a man as these boys that we're going to be talking about today, and that is the top 10 offensive lines in the NFL. This is a secret philosophy that Fantasy Football Aces is unveiling today, and I am going to change your fantasy football outlook according to this video. I am going to make sure you make the playoffs from here on out. This is a strategy that I have used for 5 years, that it's just an immaculate strategy. If you stick with it, you will win in fantasy football. So let's get right into it. And at number 10, we have the Indianapolis Colts. PFF has them ranked number 10. Now, this team was really banged up last year, but they've got it together this year. We've got an offensive line that is absolutely healthy now. We got Nelson back. Let's get into it. We could show you these stats right here with them. The Colts line was a mess last season, as it says. Quentin Nelson back. Theoretically, Quentin Nelson is still the best lineman in this group. They got a 70 overall PFF grade. The thing with this strategy is you want to build a team that is going to be around these offensive lines that are the best in the NFL, right? So, in other words, at number 10, you got the Colts. So, think about some of the players they have on their team that you would want. Pittman, the receiver. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor. I got him in my top 10 running backs in all of fantasy football right now. And then, I would put that as my short list. You can possibly make an argument for Richardson, right? Now, let's get into number 9. Number 9 is the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, as I dive in deeper to this kind of thing, I'm going to really just give you the whole philosophy on how you pull this off. So now you have the Chargers ranked PFF 76.4. They're number 9 on the list. They got Salyer as their left tackle. Possibly their Rashawn Slater has earned a starting spot at guard. They've gotten healthy there. They've got everybody back. You're talking about Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. We got Herbert off the rib injury looking healthy. And we also have Austin Eckler, who is arguably the best running back in all of fantasy football. Now, when you're looking at a snake and a salary, you start writing down these guys, right? The guys that I named. And you write down the other guy named Jonathan Taylor and Pittman. Now, pay attention to this. This is really important. Let's move on to number 8, the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Green Bay Packers are a team that is essentially on my no draft list. But if you're a fan and you believe in Jordan Love, because I personally don't believe in Jordan Love. I look at the way Aaron Rodgers played last year with that team and how the way he struggled. And I think to myself, if Aaron Rodgers struggled like that, Jordan Love's going to be worse than him. That's the way I view that. So I stay away from them, but they do fall under my philosophy as a top 10 ranked offensive line. They're down 5 from last year. You got to think about, they have Aaron Jones and Dillon in the backfield. Then you obviously got the talented Watson kid, and they got some other young talented receivers that they're going to try to showcase this year. So write those guys and pencil them down. I personally don't want Aaron Jones or Dillon. I don't like guys in a split, but maybe that's something that falls in your category of building a team. And I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean by that as we go on here. So now you go down to the 7th place team, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Atlanta is a team that you can see from last year who led the league in rushing. They're led by their big left tackle, Jake Matthews, who's been with them for quite a while now. They're one of the best offensive lines in the league. They showed that last year. They have a 93.1 PFF run blocking grade. That's absolutely fantastic. So when you're looking at Robinson, Algier, these guys, you look for Pitts to possibly bounce back with the young Ritter quarterback. And then you got London out there, right? Write down these guys. So you write them down. Then you move on to number 6, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, they've been notorious for having a great offensive line, right? Zach Martin and company, they've got an offensive line that's dominated for years. I think they're on the way on the down a little bit. But with that being said, Tyrone Smith is still there. They're getting a little older, but they're still ranked as one of the top 6, top 10 offensive lines in the NFL. And that really favors a man named Tony Pollard, my number 2 ranked running back in all of fantasy. This is one of the reasons why I rank him so high. And you write down CeeDee Lamb. You could write down Dak Prescott if you'd like. So now you got all these guys written down, and you're moving on to number 5, and that is the Detroit Lions. Now the Lions, their offensive line is off the charts. All first round picks, essentially, from left tackle to right tackle. They can really block. That is the reason why their offense exploded last year with Goff. I know Dan Quinn gets a lot of credit for his coaching ability and all that, but at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer it comes down to the offensive line in the trenches when you're a successful offense. And Detroit has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So you're looking at a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, the rookie. You got Montgomery coming over as a running back. You got St. Brown. You got Jameson Williams when he comes back from suspension. This is an offense that you want to invest in. You write down all these guys, right? I think you're starting to get where I'm going here. So now you get to number 4, the Baltimore Ravens with Ronnie Stanley and company. This team was banged up. They got Ben Cleveland over to replace Ben Powers this coming year. They're going to be healthy this coming year. So you're looking at a guy like Lamar Jackson. You're looking at their group of running backs. It's tough to say which one is ever going to emerge in that group. That's the reason why I stay away from Baltimore's backfield. But, you got Bateman out there. You got Odell Beckham out there at receiver. One of these guys you're going to want to invest in, right? So write those guys down. And we're getting closer to unveiling the full strategy and philosophy of this. But you get to number 3, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. They were one of the best offensive lines in the NFL last year. It's showcased. You got a massive season from Patrick Mahomes, massive season from Travis Kelce. Juju had a rebound year. Valdez-Scantling was disappointing, but it is what it is with him. You got Sky Moore coming up as a second year receiver who could possibly make some noise this coming year with an opening. And you got the absolutely talented Kadarius Toney. Write all those guys down. So then we move to number 2, the Cleveland Browns, where I have Nick Chubb as my number 1 rated running back in all of fantasy with an 84.5 PFF run blocking grade for this group of offensive linemen. They are absolutely fantastic. They're healthy, and they got a Chubb who's going to be a 3-down horse dog. I mean, if you're not looking at Chubb as one of your top 3 picks, you're out of your mind. Throw in, the receiving group that they got there. They drafted a young guy. We all know Cooper is going to be a solid option. I think Deshaun Watson could bounce back this year in his second year. When you have a fantastic offensive line, when you have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, you're going to have an offense that succeeds. It's just inevitable. And I have receipts now to prove it. Write down those guys from the Browns. And at number 1, the best offensive line in the NFL. They probably have the best defensive line in the NFL as well. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles. There's no mystery why their offense succeeded last year. There's no mystery why that offense was fantastic and made it to the Super Bowl last year. They're immaculate. Devontae Smith showcased his Heisman talent last year. AJ Brown's a monster. You got DeAndre Swift coming over as the lead back over there. You got some other guys behind him that you could possibly invest in. You got the tight end. You just got a really loaded roster, not to mention Jalen Hurts. And when you have the best offensive line in the NFL, it is a safe bet to invest in any one of those guys because they're going to all eat this coming year. So now you get to the back end of this whole philosophy and what I'm trying to say right now. You got your top 10 offensive line. You got all your guys written down. So here's the tricky part, and it's not so tricky. It's building a team around them. So you got your list of guys that you want to invest in because they're all on offenses that are pretty good offenses with good offensive lines. Sure, you could say, hey, I want Jalen Hurts as my quarterback. I want AJ Brown as my receiver. I want Travis Kelce as my tight end. I want Chubb as my running back. I want Tony Pollard as my other running back. I want I want Jamar Gibbs as my flex. Obviously, that's not going to work, right? There's not enough rounds for you to do that. Or in salary, you're going to run out of money after 4 of those guys. So you have to start to build a strategy, right? So if you're in Snake, depending on where you're at in the draft, 1 through 6, 6 through 12, you need to be practicing your mock drafts. You need to find software. We're going to get into this later on this week on finding your draft position and just practicing mock drafts over and over and over until you're able to formulate and build a team based upon these 10 offensive lines. So you can build a team, for example, with Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. Get Travis Kelce as your tight end. You get like a Swift as your stay away from Swift because you got Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. You can get a Chubb as your running back. You can get a London wide receiver for the Falcons as one of your receivers. You like the Green Bay Packers, you can get Watson as a receiver. You obviously got Keenan Allen or Mike Williams on that list. You got a super undervalued wide receiver, Pittman, out there in Indianapolis. You can even dive into these other high-ranked offensive lines if you have to, with the Broncos as at number 11. But you're starting to see the way you can build a team based upon all these different names that you've written down, right? So if you written down all these names that you can draft from these different positions, you may decide, hey, I want Lamar Jackson to be my quarterback. You can get him late this year, right? So you save money there, or if you're in Snake, you get him in like the 5th or 6th. So then you can invest in a couple running backs. Maybe you're later in the draft and Nick Chubb and Pollard fall to you on the Snake. Or maybe you're in salary, you take both of them. You take Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, and you try to find 3 cheaper receivers in here like Sky Moore, Pittman, or maybe you invest in Jamison Williams and hopefully he comes back for Detroit. You could probably get London, like I said, for a little cheaper, or Watson for cheaper. You just have to mess around it. This is when it comes to the mock drafts. This is when it comes to figuring out whether or not you're going to, how you're going to formulate this philosophy. And like I said, you don't have to always stick with the 10, because if there's going to be times like you can dip in to 11 where you have the Denver Broncos, then you open yourself up to getting, a Javonte Williams who can come back from injury, a P. Ryan who's going to be the starter initially and probably be there for a little while. They obviously got Sutton, who's super undervalued this year, and Jerry Jeudy, who's a little overvalued in my opinion this year. But any of these guys are guys that might fit into this formula, right? And that's something you have to consider when you're using this strategy. And this is a secret philosophy that I'm telling you, no one else is giving you. It's a strategy that's going to win you fantasy football leagues, and it's going to guarantee you playoff appearances every year unless you suffer a great injury. I'm telling you, when you're investing in offenses, specifically good offensive lines, you're taking a lot of risk out of your gains, and you can also find hidden gems, guys that are undervalued just based on their offensive line. You have to realize when your offensive line is good in the NFL, it's the most important thing by far. Your only other argument is your defensive line, because they have to go against the offensive line, but it means everything, man. A bad quarterback can be a good quarterback under a great offensive line. Just to give you a little rundown, I just want to speak a little bit about the back end of this group. You got the Tennessee Titans is the worst group in the NFL. So that's bad news for the King. Arizona Cardinals, second worst. Seattle Seahawks are pretty far down. That hurts Kenneth Walker Jr.'s status. The Giants are just below, ahead of them. That hurts Saquon Barkley, in my opinion. You have the Rams. We kind of figured that they were awful last year. The Commanders. Then you have the Jaguars. That hurts ETN's status a little bit. Houston Texans, not surprising. Saints, not surprising. The Jets, now they're the 23rd ranked offensive line in the NFL. That's a little surprising. That's a group of guys that I still would be targeting in this philosophy. I think that you're okay going after them because they're going to have a great offense. I wanted to give you a good example like that. I'm going to give you one other example. The Buffalo Bills, they're 22, but I think their offense is one of the best in the NFL. Josh Allen makes up for not having an good offensive line, which ironically the Bears are right in front of them, and I think Justin Fields will do the same thing for his offensive line. Plus he's got some young rookies that need to show their worth before they go up higher on this ranking list. Those are two good examples of teams that you can invest in that are still going to have good offenses, essentially. Everybody else in these I would stay away from. I really would. I know it sounds crazy. You got the Minnesota Vikings in the middle of that pack with Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying there's not guys like Justin Jefferson's a great example that aren't going to blow up this year. What I'm saying is if you build a team around these offensive lines that are great, long term, the results are going to be in your favor. And that doesn't mean this year they might not be in your favor. I'm a long-term data guy. I'm not going to be results oriented on 1 year. This is a long game winning philosophy. I want you guys to follow it. Really happy you tuned into this episode today. This is the biggest secret in fantasy football that I'm giving out. Nobody else is giving out this kind of secret in fantasy football. I don't even think very many people have this perspective. I've kept this to myself for a long time. I'm unveiling it today, and I hope that you guys can take this to your leagues, this philosophy, and come back and thank me, frankly, because I promise you this is a winning strategy. Like the video, subscribe. I got major good content coming every single other day right now. We're going to be dropping videos just like this, giving out sauce that nobody else is giving. I want to bring y'all boys to the next level. I want to bring championships across, a new perspective, fantasy aces. Let's go.